the 7th of February 2009, the following was posted on a forum in a thread about its users' most disturbing experiences. I'm one of 2 janitors, working in a large apartment complex. My job includes checking up on tenants that haven't been seen in a month, due to the fact that to enter or exit the apartment complex, one must pass the security camera at Porte Cochere. What that means is that if a tenant has not been seen in a month, there's a good chance they're dead. Before this incident, I'd already found 3 dead bodies. 2 old people passed away from natural causes, and a junkie who OD'd. So naturally, when the landlord told me to go check an apartment rented by a guy in his 50s one morning, I was expecting to find him dead. When I went in, there was a kind of musty smell. It was pretty faint, so it didn't seem likely for there to be a corpse lying around. I called out the tenant's name but got no response. I went around the apartment looking for him, and to see if it looked like he'd been there recently or not. There wasn't much dust anywhere, so definitely seemed like he was still living there. When I opened the bedroom door, I literally screamed and backed away. There was what appeared to be a mummified woman sitting on a bed, all dark grey brown and dry looking, with an open-mouthed grimace, with teeth visible, arms positioned kind of awkwardly, a couple patches of hair on the head, all naked. That was clearly where the smell came from, but I didn't really smell like a dead body, as far as I could tell. Now, obviously, I never smelled a mummy before, so I couldn't be sure. To my nose, it smelled like a garbage and cum. I called the police. Turned out it was actually not a mummy. It was basically a homemade sex doll. There was probably a lot of cum inside it. I'm not sure what it was made of, but even the police were a little freaked out when they first saw it. Oh, and the guy was hiding under his own bed when it came out when the cops showed up. Whole experience was so much scarier because, what the fuck? The guy still lives in the apartment, presumably still fucking that creepy ass lifelike mummy doll. 6 days later, the same user posted a thread about people ringing his doorbell and throwing pebbles at his window every night. He begged people to stop bothering him, explaining that he did not care what people did in the privacy of their bedrooms, and he understood the tenant was likely suffering from some kind of mental illness. He also explained that he couldn't move because his job required him to live in an apartment complex. Others were quickly to deny responsibility for the harassment and point out that the location was not public and he'd never posted any personally identifiable information. Later that evening, he posted another reply. He admitted it was possible that the one behind the harassment was not anybody on the forum, but he was certain it was in relation to the tenant and his doll. Many users suggested that it was the tenant himself, which he could not rule out, but considered unlikely because the man was barely ever left his apartment. Some speculated that the tenant was convicted, his friends to target the janitor, but the janitor insisted he did not seem the type to have friends. He promised to investigate further, which raised some eyebrows as it now seemed he had accepted that he could be the tenant doing it after all. Attempts to get him to explain what he meant by investigating proved unsuccessful, as he stopped posting altogether. It wasn't until 3 months later that the janitor posted again. He prefaced the post by saying that he understood that most would not believe a word of it, labelled him a troll, and promptly forgot that he had ever posted on the forum. In addition to this, he stressed that it would be his last post. He explained he had broken into the dollfucker's apartment one night with the presumption that the tenant would be asleep. What he found was indeed the man sleeping in his bed next to the doll. Only the doll was stroking his hair and whispering into his ear with one of its legs stretched over him. The janitor froze in his tracks and stared in disbelief as the dried up fingers swept back and forth. For what felt like minutes, he could only observe. Eventually, his courage returned and he demanded an explanation out loud. As soon as the tenant woke up, the doll fell off him like lifeless as any other doll. The janitor repeated his question, raising his voice. The tenant simply jumped out of the bed and crawled under it, whimpering quietly. The doll's unmoving gaze was fixed on the janitor, its body twisted in a pose that would be too uncomfortable for any human to endure. Clearly, it was not alive, and he began to wonder where he imagined the whole thing. He apologized to the tenant, attempting to soothe him while approaching the bed. He crouched so he could look under it and speak to him face to face. A crackling noise from above sent chills down his spine. He turned to look up over the bed and saw that the doll had moved to a more comfortable position, its head on the pillow and its body straight on its back. Looking under the bed, he saw the tenant was already crawling out from the other side. He tried to get the tenant to explain what had just happened, but he couldn't get a single word out of him. The man climbed back up on the bed and lied down next to the doll. The janitor concluded the post by revealing that he had been in a psychiatric ward for the past 2.5 months. After telling the police about what he saw, if he hadn't agreed to be committed, he wouldn't be arrested for breaking and entering. Many users did it as he predicted and called him a troll, promptly discarding everything he had posted as lies. Others took him at his words and attempted to explain the incident with increasingly outlandish theories. On the 17th of August 2009, I was asked to check up on the other janitor as he had come in and out of his apartment for a month. Over the past half a year, he had garnished a pet reputation of being mentally ill. And before his disappearance, he had told me on several occasions that he hadn't gotten any sleep, even with sleeping pills. Thanks to continued harassment, my apartment was next to his, but I had never noticed anything out of the ordinary, so I brushed it off as being all in his head. I would never forget what I saw when I entered the apartment. My co-worker was dead on the floor in his bed, with the mummy doll curled up by him like a lover.